right, week 17 classwork, your last one. So, a couple things here, and I want you to already have your Google Doc open for classwork. And I want you to spend just a few minutes scrolling through and looking at some of the work that we have collectively done as it relates to just classwork, because this was only one component of our class, right? So just reflect on that for a few months. Matter of fact, do me a favor and, hit pause and actually look through there. And, there may be some things that you look at that you're like, yeah, that was good. That was a challenge. That was, you'll have different reactions to that stuff. But I hope that what you also walk away with is that we covered a lot of material in this class, and I hope that you had a mostly good experience. That is honestly one of my goals, is that, and I'll talk more about that in a minute, is that students have a good experience in my class. I want you to spend most of the time doing the work and not figuring out what I want. I want you to actually look forward to doing some of the assignments, because it's like you get to learn something new. I know that's not true for every one of you and for every assignment. I know some of the My IT Lab stuff got frustrating. I also know from talking to some of you that you really liked the My IT Lab. You really enjoyed that part. So, because there are so many different aspects of this class, and there are so many of you with such diverse views and lives, and everybody's going to have a unique experience. So I wanted to start with that because I really appreciate the diversity that I see here at Fresno City College and in my classes, and I really want to thank you for what you bring to the campus and to the community that we are. And it does make a difference. It really, really does make a difference. So thank you for that. So what I'm going to do in this last video is I'm going to go over for the last time just the end of semester process so that you understand it. And then I'm going to have an ask of you. And then I'll have some, it may already sound like I had some parting comments, but I will actually have a few other parting comments. So let me turn to the presentation and just kind of go through some of the things. So, oh, I forgot to update that. So first thing is the very important dates, and there's nothing new on this list. These are all dates I've gone over before. But I wanted to just bring them back again. So December 11th at midnight. Now, I've said this for a while, so let me just say it one more time. I give this a midnight deadline, not because I'm going to be up at midnight, but because it gives you a target date to go after. And just as I move over to the calendar real quick, right? So December the 11th at midnight, that thing is due. But I'm not going to be up at midnight. But I will tell you, I will be grading throughout that day as I see work. And really, as you have already experienced, I grade twice a week already. So, but in this day in particular, I will grade as I see it come in and as I can get to it. And as late as I can stay up, honestly, too. But then when I wake up that next morning on Tuesday, that is the day that will finish anything that was submitted overnight. And so the final doesn't go away until then. But then after I finish grading, right, that is the review day. And I've talked about this before, but in here, right, I'll come back to that in a second. Okay, so actually let me show you this. Okay, so the review day is the next day. But a couple of things here, right? So a couple of things on the late grade as well. Wrong window, this one. So when we get, or even before that, because right now you're watching the last classwork, right? And I covered a lot of these topics in week 12, so I'm not going to spend a lot on them, but I want to be clear about a couple of things. When you set up your late points return sheet, that is only applied to items that you submit late. You can't just submit a late points return for an item that you haven't complete and expect to get points back for it. So in your notes, let's be very clear that this late points return sheet that you can set up, and it will represent the trainings that you've done. And then for each one of those trainings, you can ask me to late grade with getting those points back. Now you can apply this late points return to anything from the beginning of the semester, okay? And I'm pointing here, but really it is here, and this due at midnight, or again, I went over the actual process there, is the last time you can ask me to late grade something or apply those late points return to something that either has already been graded as late or that you're submitting as late. But you can't just ask me, okay, Rio, I've done 2 of these trainings. Could you just apply these points to an item I haven't complete? So just be clear that that's not the way that works. Okay? Clear? I hope so. Right? Because I want to be clear about this, because I don't want there to be any surprises at the end of this class. I want you to be very clear, and I hope, and I already have seen there's some folks, even at the point that I record this, which is the week before in week 16, is that I already see some students very close to finishing already. Okay, so on that review day, there'll be no more work to submit. Okay. And so here's the other thing. When we're looking at that review day here, that grade that is in Canvas represents your grade in the course on this day. Okay, now it's really if you finish early, then it would represent that before this day. And the only reason I say this is I want to be clear, right? There's nothing else for you to do on this day except review your grade. And maybe if you had asked me to late grade something, or you actually had already submitted it into Canvas, and for some reason between you and I it didn't get checked, that would be an example of something you could ask me to review. Okay? So let me bring you back. So hopefully that is clear, right? Because the thing is, at the end of the semester, when students wait until the last minute and then they're feeling stressed and they come to me and say, hey, could you give me another day? My answer is no. And here's why. Is that I've communicated real clear about the end of the semester, and it's not fair to those students who didn't ask me but would have benefited from an extra day, right? So don't put yourself and me in a situation where you're like, please, just another 24 hours. It's like, no, you've had 24 hours, so use them to your most advantage. Use them to set yourself up for success. Again, don't wait if you don't have to, right? So that's what I wanted to say about that. And then of course the next, right, and this is what I just said, is that your grade in Canvas is your grade in the course. Right? And this review day is only for asking questions and clarifying anything. It's not for you to do any work. And then of course on the December 13th, I will then wake up that next morning and input grades into WebAdvisor. But hopefully you know already you won't see those grades until later, right? And it really shouldn't matter, except that, by the way, it is good to check later to make sure that there hasn't been a typo, because that happens, right? Is that sometimes as we're entering grades we make a typo, and that's what's great about having Canvas, is that because it's recorded, and if there's any discrepancy, it's easy to take care of, okay? But again, my goal is not to have any of those typo errors, which is why when I'm entering grades I slow down, I take a breath, and I think, okay, is that right? Yeah, is that right? Yeah, okay. So the other thing is about this, on December 11th, this, during the day is going to be the best time for any student, meaning face-to-face student or online student, to come see me, because I will be in the classroom, and make sure this goes in your notes. Even if this is your class period, I want this in your notes. I will be in the classroom, and the classroom is BE 127, okay, from 1 o'clock to 2:50 on December 11th. So let me go back to the calendar. So on December 11th, during the day, from 1 o'clock to 2:50, I will be in BE117. And that is the greatest time to come in and clarify any questions you might have, again, before the following day of review day, because there is still some time to maybe submit one or two things if you're in that situation, or even if you just want to come in and say hi, or even if you would just want to come in and work, right? This is a great day to do it, because anything after this day, again, that next morning, right, you won't be able to do any work after that point. So just be clear about what that is. And also one last thing in your notes about the chapter quizzes, right? And I've said this before, but if you missed it, and I recommend actually if you want to increase your grade, you can actually retake those chapter quizzes, because I do not mark off late points, but if you hadn't done them, there'll be a 0 in your grade. But if you retake them, that highest score will be reported in your grade, okay? And so you don't have to use those chapter quizzes in your late points return sheet, just as long as you've submitted them right before when you should know the answer, right? Then it'll be fine. And the answer was December 11th at midnight, or really the next morning. Okay? Okay, so the other thing is, and let's just move to here, is that, and I've said this before, but the exam is in my IT lab under final. You can take it up to 3 times, right? And you can save as you go. You're going to report the percentage. So first you take it, if you want to take it, and you know, maybe you only want to take it once. By the way, you can also figure out how much you need to get on the final, right, in order to get the grade that you want in the class. I've talked about that, and that is the what if scenario inside a Canvas, right? So inside of your grade, right, if you go in and look at, and I'm looking at it as an instructor, so for you, when you go in and look at your grade, remember there's that what if feature. Right? So going back here, you can take this up to 3 times. You can save it as you go through, but hopefully you get the grade you want the first time around. You do what we've done in all the other My IT Lab stuff. You do a PDF or a print screen of your score. You put it up in Google Drive, and then you give me a link in the submission for this item. So right here in week 17, okay, the final itself. So this is where you would give me a link to that PDF or print screen that was in the shared with Rio, okay? So that part hopefully is more clear if it wasn't already, you know, and I again recommend you go back and check out week 12 if you haven't done that, just to get even more clarification about that if you need it, okay? Okay, so now that I believe that ends what I wanted to say as far as just how this class ends, and making sure you're clear about what, if there's any questions, right? Now is the time to ask as you're watching this week 17, if you're unclear about any of this. So these last couple slides now move away from the end of the semester to, you know, just talk about some of my goals. You know, and I'll read this before I come back at you, but make this, you know, my goal is to make this course a fun learning experience that set the students up for success, right? I need to fix that, but so that really is my goal. And have I been successful? You know, I'm sure I'm not 100% successful. It depends on how we rate and how we determine success, because there's many different ways we could measure that, but there actually is a number we measure from the campus perspective as far as success rates, how many have passed a course. So that's one way to look at it. Now, having said that, as far as I can tell, this semester I will have achieved something pretty cool for me, and it's that I will have had the highest percentage of students pass my class, and that's cool. And I've reflected upon why, and actually I've had some conversations with our campus community about why that is. And so I'm going to actually be giving a presentation next semester. Before the start of the next semester, we have what's called a flex day. And this is for faculty to, do some professional development, to learn about many different aspects of teaching and just personal growth. And so I've committed that I'm going to do a presentation on how I think I've achieved what I've done to achieve this, for me, new level of success, and what would be considered a pretty good number, and something I think as a campus we would want to achieve. Now, why am I talking about this? Because one part of my presentation is I want to ask a couple of you, and as many of viewers that are interested, to come to that session, and talk to faculty about your experience in this class. And it doesn't necessarily and have to be completely positive, right? You may have wanted me to run it a different way, and that's okay too, because trust me, we all benefit from feedback, right? So here's one thing that maybe the students online don't understand. Students in the face-to-face class, the way they've, you can either take it online or face-to-face. I told students in the face-to-face mode in day one that coming to class was not required for them to pass the class. And so immediately some of them basically went into the all online mode, even though they were registered in a face-to-face class. And this was the semester I was the most open about this, because the truth was this was already happening in my class. I just wasn't talking about it. And so I decided to talk about it and be clear about it. I mean, my thing about this was, if students chose not to come to class in that first 9 weeks, they had to at least be passing my class. If they weren't passing my class in those first 9 weeks, then they were subject to drop. So I did have at least a guideline for them to follow, because I wanted to give, and I want to give any of, whatever mode you're in, the most flexibility to succeed. So I feel like that's helped, and I'm also thinking about how I would tweak this in the future. So bottom line, and this is going to go in your notes, is like, A, would you be interested in being one of those students that come into that session? And that's the Friday before the start of the semester, right? So we could look at it, that date, in a minute and see what that date is. And I believe it's in the afternoon, and I think it's around 2:30 right now is where they have me on the schedule. So, A, would you be interested? If so, give me some contact information so that I can contact you as more details arrive with that. And then if you're not able to, but you would like you would like to provide to that faculty community that I will be speaking to your feedback about this, because you've had classes now, you've taken a variety of classes at this campus, right? You've seen different ways that, classes that seem to work or maybe not work for you, or, because you can tell, what that is, and not that it has to be the same for everyone. But it would be helpful to have your feedback that you'd be willing to allow me to give to them about the way you've experienced at least my version of the setup of this class. Okay? Thank you for that. Just consider that. And, that also serves as my course feedback you're giving me about my course. And again, it doesn't have to be positive. If it is positive, cool. Thank you. But it doesn't have to be, because we all benefit. I know I'm repeating myself. We all benefit from good feedback. And that is helpful, because your grade is a feedback from me, right? So it's just all part of the process. So let me turn back real quick and just look at that date. I'm going to roll the calendar forward. So in January, as we come back, right, the semester begins on the 8th. So this would be on the Friday the 12th, around 2:30, I think, in the afternoon. And it's on campus, and it'll be in the OAB. So if you're able to do that, great. That'd be awesome. If not, totally cool. Just provide me in your classwork that feedback you would want me to give. Tell those faculty about your experience of this class. Okay, so thank you. And I mean that with complete sincerity because without you, I would not have a job. But I don't just have a job, I have a career and I have meaningful work in the world. And you make that possible. Your desire to grow in who you are is to, because we all, I mean, I consider myself a lifelong learner. And there is something so fundamental about learning and growing and experiencing new things. And technology's pretty integral and fairly, I think, easy to teach these days because it's everywhere. And there's been some social topics I haven't talked about, right? I mean, right now, the biggest one that I want you to kind of end with, and you're going to see, I'm going to find afterwards, I haven't found it yet. I've been looking for a video to help you understand, if you don't already, net neutrality. So, net neutrality is really important, and here's why, in my opinion. And I can't say I completely understand it as well. And I think this is why some people just kind of glaze over when people start talking about the net neutrality. So, the internet, right? So when we transfer information across the internet, that information should all have equal rights. There shouldn't be one that has priority over another. So if we, and in the previous, Obama administration, and there was already a sense of net neutrality, but there was just, put into policy at the FCC, which is the Federal Trade Commission, Communications Commission, that there was an agreement among people on the internet that we would let all bits be equal so that there wasn't a tiered internet. And my big concern is if we wipe this stuff out, the big players in this industry like Comcast, like AT&T, like Verizon, and even like my favorite Google. This is not the direction I believe we need to move. So I hope to see some voices raised about this because it is an important issue because we can look at today's world and we can wax on about what's not working, but we can also look at this world and wax on about what is working and about the free flow of information and the free flow of ideas and what that creates. Even though sometimes that creates very disruptive looking things, we are tearing down old businesses and cultures and trying and finding our way into new ones. And without a free and open communications channel, that makes that process even more challenging than it already inherently may be. So anyway, I will find again a little something just to kind of help you understand this issue if you don't already, because this is not the first time it's come up, and it'd be wonderful to think it was the last if we could defeat that stripping net neutrality laws out. But we'll see. I'm optimistic, and I guess that's the other thing I would leave you with is I'm really optimistic about where we're at. And I think it's easy to be pessimistic, but there's so much good happening, and we don't always get to hear about the good stuff that's happening in the world. But I see it all the time. Recently, I started riding the bus because I had an injury and I couldn't walk and carry my backpack. And I got to tell you, there's some really awesome people riding the bus. And this stereotype that maybe people that don't ride the bus have about assuming a certain type of person rides the bus is so wrong. I met some of the most friendly, open people riding the bus, right? And it's just everywhere I go in my life, I find the coolest people. And that's because I'm open to that, right? And I think just being open is important. All right, enough from me. Enough, enough, enough. So, anyway, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to do a job that means something to me. And I hope I've kept the responsibility, or I've upheld the responsibility that has been placed upon me. And I hope to see you in another semester. Again, I've done a shameless plug about next semester, but I'm teaching CIT82 in the 9-week compressed mode. There is a lot of content in that class, but if you're at all interested in continuing learning more about what's happening with the web, more of the web, not so much the internet, but more of the web, then definitely think about taking that class. And again, if this is your path, I hope to see you in future classes. But either way, please stop by and see me. BE, I'm in my office right now. BE, Business Education 113. Always, if I'm not around, reach out and tell me when you're going to be here, and I'll see if I can work that out. All right, peace out. Have a great winter break. And if you're back on campus next semester, I hope to see you then. Bye. Actually, I should say I hope to not see you because I hope you pass this class. So I hope to not see you in my class, but I hope to see you around campus. I know, just to clarify. Bye.